Are we recording? Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah.
And 5 minutes and will be start.
Oh, sure. And how many students do we have today?
100 every lectures, and maybe first 5 and 15 minutes it is starting.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Марічка, ти maybe many students making Pasku today, and traditional in Ukraine. And yes, we have 45 and maybe 2-3 minutes and we'll be start.
Let's wait for a bit. Bye.
Good afternoon for everyone.
Може, ми розпочнемо, а всі приєднаються вже додатково, щоб ми не змушували чекати 3 хвилини. Сьогодні з нами буде Вінета Кляйне, це директор Центру документації інформації НАТО. Це наші партнери, які підтримують цю освіту євроатлантичну для нашої молоді в Україні. І ми щиро вдячні, бо саме завдяки підтримці Центру документації інформації НАТО в Україні ми вже утретє можемо провести парламентську асамблею цю модель разом з вами. Тож, я дуже дякую Вінеті, що сьогодні вона змогла до нас доєднатися і розповість вам все те дуже цікаве, що ви, напевно, і скоріше за все не зможете ніде прочитати. І сьогодні, я думаю, що ви так само зможете поставити питання, як і на попередніх лекціях, те, що буде вкрай вам найбільш цікаво, і те, що ви будете моделювати потім у цій грі, яку ми змоделюємо у травні місяці вже у Києві. Отож, я тоді запрошую до слова Вінету. Маємо станом на зараз 69 осіб. В принципі, для моделі парламентської асамблеї таких учасників є достатньо. Тому maybe we'll be start. Вінета, thank you so much, and we'll be start.
Thank you, Oksana. Indeed, this is already the third year we work together with Oksana and Anna on Parliamentary Assembly use model. And when Oksana and Anna approached us 3 years ago, so we really found the project interesting and also useful for young active Ukrainians to learn how international organizations, how they work, how decisions are taken, how this mechanism is operating. And we had a very good first use Parliamentary Assembly use model, which we held 2 years ago. And then last year also was invited to speak in Lviv. And when it was held, and also this year. So we continue this cooperation because it's also a chance to engage with you and with people who are interested in international security environment, in international organizations. And as Oksana already mentioned, I'm leading NATO Information Documentation Center, which was established in 1997. And today, our lecture, I would like to divide in 2 parts, as I was asked. So in the beginning, I will speak about just also to give you a context, I will speak about broader NATO-Ukraine engagement and cooperation that you can put things into context. And then I was also asked to speak about how decisions are taken in NATO. Am I right, Oksana? So yeah, this is how I have divided our today's conversation. And yeah, then I go ahead with NATO-Ukraine partnership and NATO representation to Ukraine, so that you understand that there is also a representation of NATO in Ukraine and what we do. Indeed, over the past 25 years, NATO and Ukraine have developed a very unique partnership, which has contributed to significant progress toward fulfilling Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. And after the Revolution of Dignity, the illegal and illegitimate annexation of Crimea by Russia, and the Russian instigated conflict in the Donbass in 2014, cooperation between Ukraine and NATO has greatly increased. And to give you an example, I will speak about the comprehensive assistance package, which was established in 2016. And I would like also ask you to remember, because I believe that you will hear more and more about this instrument NATO has for Ukraine. It's the comprehensive assistance package, which was designed to support Ukraine's ability to provide for its own security. It's one thing to provide for its own security, as well as to implement wide-ranging reforms in the security and defense sector, reforms which are based on Euro-Atlantic principles and best practice. Then in June 2017, a year later, the Ukrainian parliament adopted legislation which reinstated Ukraine's membership in NATO as a strategic foreign and security policy objective. And then in 2019, as we know, a corresponding amendment to Ukraine's constitution entered into force. Ukraine also actively contributed to NATO-led operations and missions, such as the KFOR mission in Kosovo. And when I was working in Kosovo from 2011 to 2015, I also met Ukrainian troops in Kosovo. And Ukraine has also contributed to a NATO response force. And NATO and Ukraine closely collaborated in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2020, NATO recognized Ukraine as an enhanced opportunities partner. And maybe you have heard about this framework or this recognized status of Ukraine as an enhanced opportunities partner. And it means this status involves Ukraine's enhanced access to NATO exercises, as well as more sharing of information and lessons learned. Then over the years, Ukraine's cooperation with NATO has covered a wide range of activities. And they vary from building and enhancing Ukraine's capabilities and interoperability with NATO forces, and military-to-military cooperation or mil-to-mil cooperation. It also includes promoting reforms in Ukraine's defense and security sector, and also our support to non-military activities like collaborative scientific research and public diplomacy. And Ukraine, by the way, is the major recipient of NATO's Center for Peace and Security program. And this program is an important cooperation aspect between Ukraine and NATO, between scientists, Ukrainian scientists and researchers, and scientists from NATO member states. And now I'd like to speak a bit about NATO representation to Ukraine. As such, it was established in 2016 when the comprehensive assistance package was introduced. And then NATO representation of Ukraine consolidated two already existing NATO bodies or offices in Ukraine. It's NATO Information Documentation Center, which I represent, and which was established back in 1997, and NATO Liaison Office, which was established in 1999, so quite a long time ago. And 2016, to consolidate and more effectively manage NATO support of Ukraine, both offices were combined in one body. Under one roof, NATO representation to Ukraine represents an evolution in NATO's involvement in Ukraine and our continuous support to Ukraine. The NATO Information and Documentation Center, pretty long title, is part of NATO Public Diplomacy Division. because NATO has several divisions, and let's use abbreviation NIDC. It is part of the NATO Public Diplomacy Division. And it was the first information office established by NATO in a partner country, and which is also open to the general public. So the NIDC's two major strands of work, or two major directions of work, are its public diplomacy and information and awareness. And the other strand of work is strategic communications. And speaking about our partners, they are government institutions, just to name a few of them, such as Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ukrainian Parliament, Cabinet of Ministers, National Security and Defense Council, Ministry of Defense, Security Service, and State Bodyguard Service, and other institutions. Then we also engage with civil society organizations, which are involved in defense and security issues, and that's why we are close partners with ANTS. Then we also engage with the Ukrainian mass media and journalists, and we frequently bring to Brussels groups of Ukrainian journalists. And we do it also during Russia's launched full-scale invasion of Ukraine, because it's very important that Ukrainian journalists are present, that they also are present at foreign or defense ministerials or NATO summits. And then we also engage with universities across Ukraine. And for example, next Friday, I will also participate in a scientific conference which is organized by Lviv University. Then what does NIDC do? We organize and support various communications projects. They are TV and radio projects, they are seminars, video, conferences, briefings, multimedia projects, and interviews. And shortly ago, we also invited Ukrainians who were winners of various other competitions, essay competitions, or also who participated in NATO Parliamentary Assembly, or who were winners of our radio projects. We invited them to visit NATO headquarters. And another aspect, as I already mentioned, is strategic communications. And strategic communications partnership roadmap between NATO and NATO Security and National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine was signed in 2015. And the aim of this partnership is to enhance the capacities of the Ukrainian authorities in the strategic communications sphere. This is about NIDC. Then shortly about NATO Liaison Office. NATO Liaison Office, or NLO, was established in Kyiv in 1999, and the office plays a key role in facilitating NATO-Ukraine cooperation. And NLO's key interlocutors include the Ministries of Interior, Foreign Affairs and Defense, the Presidential Office, the National Security and Defense Council, the Parliament, and several other Ukrainian agencies. And NLO's main priorities are strengthening Ukraine's implementation of broad Euro-Atlantic reforms, enhancement of NATO-Ukraine political and practical dialogue, supporting the transformation and democratic governance of the security and defense sector, and also building interoperability between allied and Ukrainian forces. And it is worth mentioning or underlining that NATO representation to Ukraine has played a key role in strengthening the NATO-Ukraine partnership through supporting implementation of the comprehensive assistance package via three strands of work. It's advisory expertise, it's trust funds, and capacity building programs. And over the years, NATO representation has facilitated NATO's support to Ukraine in the areas of explosive ordnance disposal and countering improvised explosive devices, in destruction of small arms and light weapons, conventional ammunition, and anti-personnel landmines. Also, we have supported Ukraine in the management of, safe management of ammunition stockpile. Then there is also in safe radioactive waste disposal and land restoration. We support Ukraine's cyber defense capabilities. We help Ukraine with logistics and standardization, with command, control, communications, and computers. We also help with the development of Ukraine's special forces. We help with military career transition and medical rehabilitation. So as you can see, it's this support covers the defense and security sector widely. Then we have also supported, and we continue to support Ukraine in the areas of professional military education, building integrity, as well as through professional development program. And NATO has been also supporting Ukraine in such areas as resilience, countering hybrid threats, as well as in implementation of United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, which is Women, Peace and Security. And NATO representations advisors have been engaging with Ukraine on number of key reforms in defense and security. And we have been working closely with numerous counterparts in the governmental and legislative branches. Last year, NATO held a summit in Madrid, in Spain, and then leaders and heads of NATO governments and states, they took several decisions to further develop and strengthen the distinctive partnership between NATO and Ukraine. And to do it with a focus on helping Ukraine defend itself from the illegal and unprovoked full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. And NATO heads of state and government approved a new strategic concept also last year for the alliance, setting out NATO's priorities, setting out our core tasks and approaches for the next decade, next 10 years. And this concept describes the security environment facing the alliance. It also reaffirms our values we stand for. And it spells out NATO's key purpose of ensuring our collective defense. And
Vінета, don't listen.
Say again? Say again? Can you hear me? You can hear me, yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good, yeah. And I would like to underline 3 key points about the new strategic concept. So I would like to underline, these 3 key points about the new strategic concept, which are relevant to the distinctive partnership between NATO and Ukraine. And the concept clearly recognizes that Russia is the most significant and direct threat to allies' security. It also recognizes that a strong, independent Ukraine is vital for the stability of the Euro-Atlantic area. And it also reaffirms the historic decision of the 2008 Bucharest summit that Ukraine will become a member of NATO and commits to continue to develop the NATO-Ukraine partnership. And at the NATO summit in Madrid last June, all allies also took the historic decision to invite Finland and Sweden to join the alliance. And Finland became the 31st member of NATO just a week ago on the 4th of April. And it's also a day when we celebrate NATO's birthday, because NATO was established on the 4th of April in 1949. Since Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014, NATO has implemented the largest reinforcement of our own collective defense in a generation. And when Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine last year, we were ready for that. And within hours, we activated our defense plans from the Baltic to the Black Sea. And we put 40,000 troops under NATO command with a significant air and maritime presence. And we doubled the number of NATO battle groups from 4 to 8. We are also increasing the protection of our critical national infrastructure, which is important. And last year at NATO summit in Madrid, we also agreed to strengthen or to enhance the comprehensive assistance package for Ukraine so that we can provide even more support to Ukraine. And this enhanced CAP includes support in multiple areas. It includes secure communications, which is very important. It includes cyber defenses and resilience, fuel, medical supplies, body armor, equipment to counter mines and chemical and biological threats. This will accelerate also the delivery of non-lethal defense equipment. And it also aims at improving Ukraine's cyber defenses and resilience, and also support modernizing its Ukraine's defense sector in its transition to strengthen this long-term interoperability with allies. And in the longer term, we will assist Ukraine and support efforts on Ukraine's path of post-war reconstruction and reforms. So it's a tool or instrument which is designed for support to Ukraine. And just to give you a number that NATO allies have over the last year supported Ukraine with military and financial and economic support. So it's military, financial, and economic support, which is worth close to 100 billion euros. You can imagine the amount of the support. It's close to 150 billion euros, out of which 65 billion euros is military support. And in a meeting of the NATO-Ukraine Commission, which took place last week during the foreign ministerial here in Brussels on 4th of April, allied foreign ministers reaffirmed their strong support for Ukraine. And NATO support to Ukraine was also a major focus of discussion at the meeting of foreign ministers in Brussels on 4th and 5th of April. And the meetings underscored NATO's continuous commitment to Ukraine. As agreed at the Madrid summit, we have also stepped up urgent non-lethal support through NATO's Ukraine Fund. And allies also agreed to start work on developing a multi-year assistance program for Ukraine. And this really shows that our support will continue, as we say at NATO, for as long as it takes. And we allies also made clear that we remain committed to NATO's open door policy, and NATO's position remains unchanged, and that is that Ukraine will become a member of the alliance. At the same time, the main focus now is to ensure that Ukraine prevails as a sovereign, independent nation in Ukraine. And that is also a reason why NATO allies and partners have provided unprecedented support for Ukraine. We are also looking into how we can develop our political relationship with Ukraine, and that how we can support reforms and institution building and transition from Soviet era to NATO standards and interoperability. And all of this also helps to move Ukraine closer to its Euro-Atlantic integration. When the war does end, we will need to put in place arrangements so that Ukraine can deter future aggression and that history doesn't repeat itself. So I will just underline again that we are supporting Ukraine in many ways. NATO as organization and NATO member states. And we are also, we are very much committed to continue. And for example, I know that for the time being, it's also it's important that we help Ukraine with those materials which are needed so that Ukraine can win, and that the war is ended on those terms which are acceptable for Ukraine. So that was an insight into NATO-Ukraine cooperation and what NATO representation to Ukraine does, various aspects of cooperation, how NATO as organization is supporting Ukraine, and how allies are supporting Ukraine. And now I will speak a bit about consensus decision-making at NATO, because I was also asked. So, and it's important because it's something which is specific for Ukraine. And it's important to understand that all NATO decisions, or all decisions which are taken by NATO member states, or as we say, NATO allies, they are made by consensus. It means that all members need to come to a joint decision. And these decisions are taken after discussion and consultation among member states. That's why discussion and consultation is a fundamental part of how NATO operates and functions. And when a NATO decision is announced, it is therefore the expression of the collective will. It's the expression of the collective will of all the sovereign states that are members of the alliance. We don't vote. You know, it's not that, for example, as in some other organizations that which are based on majority vote. No, it's a collective will of all sovereign states, which are now 31, and that are members of the alliance. And thus, a consensus decision-making is a fundamental principle which has been accepted as the sole basis for decision-making in NATO since the very beginning of NATO's establishment, since the creation of the alliance in 1949. And this consensus decision-making means that, as I already said, there is no voting at NATO. Instead, consultations take place until a decision is acceptable to all. And until decision that is acceptable to all, that this decision is reached. And sometimes member states, member countries agree to disagree on an issue. So it's also an agreement. And I will again underline that consultation is a key part of NATO's decision-making process. And it takes place on all subjects, on all matters of interest to the alliance, including NATO's day-to-day business, its core objectives and fundamental role. And this consultation process reinforces NATO's political dimension by giving members the opportunity to voice, to express opinions and official positions. So, and as you know, NATO is a political and military alliance. And this consultation, yeah, it reinforces NATO's political dimension. And it also gives NATO an active role in preventive diplomacy by providing the means to help avoid military conflict. And one of NATO's roles is to contribute to the escalation and also of certain conflicts. So, and also in preventive diplomacy. In general, this negotiation process is actually rapid because members consult each other on a regular basis. So member countries, they meet, they consult, they discuss, they exchange their opinions, and therefore often they know and understand each other's positions already in advance. And the principal forum for political consultation is the North Atlantic Council. North Atlantic Council is the highest body of the alliance, or the senior body. It's the main decision-making body. And the Secretary General, he chairs the North Atlantic Council, he plays an essential part in this process. And consultation also takes place on a regular basis in other fora, including various NATO committees and working groups. And all of these bodies derive their authority from the Council. And facilitating the process of consultation and consensus decision-making is one of the NATO Secretary General's main tasks. So he's a facilitator of this consultation and consensus decision-making. And the principle, I will finish by stating that the principle of consensus decision-making applies throughout NATO. And I will just again reiterate that it means that all NATO decisions are the expression of the collective will of all sovereign states that are members of this intergovernmental organization. So that is about NATO decision-making process in NATO, in the alliance. So, and now we have a little bit of time. So, and yeah, I think maybe we can take, Oksana, some questions. So if the students have.
Yes. Дар'я Степаненко, Степан Максимів, Наталія Белінська і далі знову. Прошу, задавайте.
Вінета Кляйне. First of all, I'm very grateful for your speech, and I remember that we met a year ago online with students of Kyiv International University, and I'm very glad to meet you today. My question is, Ukraine has shown in the field of military training at a high level. Can Ukraine be included in NATO during the war, or it is only when it ends?
So, as I underlined, and the main goal now is to end the war. So, on conditions which are acceptable for Ukraine itself. So, and no other party has a right to decide, you know, what peace agreement or conditions should be. So it's up to Ukraine to decide. So. That's why right now NATO is very much focused on this immediate help and support, so which is needed, and that's why also Secretary General continuously also ask allies to help, to support. So there is also another thing is how interoperable is Ukraine, and we see that how quickly Ukraine also learns how to use all the systems or military support provided by NATO allies. So now we are indeed focused on supporting Ukraine and helping to end the brutal war launched by Russia. So, and then, as I said already, NATO Bucharest decision, which was taken in 2008, it's valid. So, and we reiterate NATO's open door policy, and the fact that Finland recently joined the alliance, and Sweden will soon join NATO, is the fact that NATO's open door policy is valid. So, and that also Ukraine will join the alliance.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. My question is, what main factors to your mind made it difficult for the center to acquaint people with NATO and its activities, to increase support of NATO membership among Ukrainians at the beginning? Because according to statistics, in 2002, 32% of Ukrainians were in favor of joining NATO, while in 2008, only 15% idea.
It's Stepan. So thank you, Stepan. So was it indeed in 2002 that only 15% of Ukrainians, yeah?
No, 2002, 30% supported, and then it declined.
Yeah, so I think you Ukrainians, you know better why support to Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic incentives. So and why Ukrainians want and wish to join the alliance is increasing. And I think that you can make your own conclusion. So I will just add that I myself, I'm a Latvian, and I come from Latvia, and I very much understand Ukraine's wish to join, and I think also Ukraine is or Ukrainian citizens, people understand that Ukraine needs a credible security, mechanism, so which would guarantee its sovereignty and independence and security. And for example, we Latvians, based on our historical memory and based on our history, we knew that the only guarantor for us it's NATO, and that's why since the beginning of independence we were very much focused on implementing all the requirements and reforms that we can join. And in 2004, by the way, with the 1 month of difference, Latvia, and also Estonia and Lithuania joined NATO and the European Union. So I think, because this increase, and also Russia's brutal war, it just shows that we need and Ukraine needs credible security guarantees, and this is also what Ukrainian government is working on. So, and that's why it's very clear, understandable why so many people, why more and more people are supporting countries, Euro-Atlantic, integration path. Thanks.
Thank you, Vінета. And I have a question about public diplomacy, because I'm studying in public management and administration sphere, and I'm very interested in giving more details about cooperation between NATO and Ukraine. And do you consider some another aspects, accepting what you consider, for example, this is military, economical, medical help and support for further cooperation between our country and NATO? Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, this cooperation or engagement of NATO with Ukraine, it's multifaceted. So it's very wide and broad. Of course, we are focused on supporting Ukraine's defense and security sector, and this is one. This is also like a military-to-military support. It's also, we have helped a lot with reintegrating Ukrainian, like those Ukrainian servicemen who have retired from the armed force before the war. We supported with their integration. So we support Ukraine when it comes to development of Ukraine's military education, which is very important. So we are supporting Ukraine's cyber defense capability development, strengthening Ukraine's cyber security. And this is very thing. So of course, I'm very eager always to talk about public diplomacy, because I'm very much convinced that public diplomacy or engagement, direct engagement with people, it's very important aspect of how countries operate and how international organizations operate. By public diplomacy, because it means we meet face to face with people, we discuss, we exchange, we engage, we speak, and we need to speak so to each other. And that's why also such a big portion of what NATO does, and maybe sometimes we think, yeah, NATO, it's a military alliance. So, but it's discussion, it's engagement, it's many things can be solved, unfortunately, not in case of what is going on now in Ukraine when Russia decided to invade and launch a war on Ukraine. But many things can be solved at the negotiation table. And I would like to underline that NATO did its, its utmost to persuade Russia not to attack on Ukraine. And we also that would be a huge mistake and huge miscalculation. So unfortunately, Russia decided to attack. But public diplomacy, for example, before the war, my center did a lot, and we organized all kinds of exhibitions, so meetings with students, with universities, because it's also one of the ways how we were explaining what NATO does, and also to take away some bias or perceptions about NATO. And we have always stressed that NATO, it's a political and military alliance. And one of the aspects of public diplomacy, and NATO puts a lot of emphasis on public diplomacy, it's also cultural diplomacy. So, but it is what we were doing before the war. But now it's our main focus into support Ukraine, so that Ukraine prevails as independent, sovereign country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, Дені Коробко, Олег Майборода і Лана Оселедцева, please.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for this really marvelous and important lecture. So my question is NATO going to take any action or use political instruments against those NATO members, countries that have a completely contradictory policy? For example, Turkey and Hungary. In fact, the Montreal Convention is outdated, and Russia have maybe semi-total control on the Black Sea region, but still Turkey has an opportunity to cut it off. This is just the case. So, yeah.
Dennis, thank you, for your opinion and comments. All NATO members are highly valued. So, and here, while I'm working out of Brussels, I can see how each member state is putting efforts and supporting Ukraine in various aspects. So, and with what NATO member states can. So, and that also implies, that's also relates to your mentioned NATO member states. So, and we work together, and one of the things what I have heard from my colleagues here in NATO, because I joined NATO, it was autumn 2020, and I immediately went to Kyiv, is that the level of support to Ukraine, for Ukraine, so it's unprecedented. So, and that each member state does also maximum, so, and supports in various ways as we can. It's all kinds of support. So, and very important aspect is also humanitarian support. It's also medical support. It's financial support. So it's military, non-military support. So because it's everything what we do, because we understand that Ukraine must prevail. Why? Because Ukraine stands for values NATO member states stand for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want, first of all, I want to express the gratitude on behalf of myself, on behalf of all youth representatives which are present today. for this indispensable experience you gave us about the North Atlantic Alliance and its interaction with our country, with Ukraine. And my question will be also devoted to the prospect of Ukraine and NATO relationship and interaction. Well, you know, we all know the statement of General Secretary of NATO Jens Stoltenberg about the fact that Ukraine will become a part of NATO only after the war ends. And my question is, how can Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian people itself, adapt its legislation, its law right now in order to accelerate? Can we accelerate somehow the integration of Ukraine into the North Atlantic Alliance until the war ends? Because we all know that obviously after the war there will be problems such as reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories, the economic recovery, and so on. So what, in other words, what can we do now, right now, in order to accelerate this process and eventually to become a part of North Atlantic Alliance? Thank you.
Oleg, thank you. The thing is that NATO already supported and helped with reforms, but particularly with reforms in the security and defense sector. Because when I worked in Ukraine in 2016 and 17, I was with EU advisory mission. Maybe you have heard about EU advisory missions, and we were supporting like police, so and then bodyguard service, fiscal service, so anti-corruption bodies. So this time NATO is particularly focused on security and defense sector. So. And before the war, we were also engaging with Ukrainian authorities to help Ukraine also to adapt various aspects which are needed to enhance or to reform, for example, Ukrainian institutions. So to implement reforms. We worked closely. We worked on the reform process of security service of Ukraine. Then we also engaged on many other aspects because parliamentary oversight of defense and security sectors is very important for those aspirant countries who want to join the alliance. So this is one. Definitely, we will continue this work afterwards. And for example, we also are determined to enhance our engagement with Ukraine, so that Ukraine can be fully interoperable with NATO. That Ukraine adopts like also standards or best practice, so which we are applying. I know that sometimes we are impatient, and I know Ukrainians for quite long, and I know that Ukrainians are rather impatient. So, and we want to take big steps forward. But on the other hand, I know that certain things require time. So require time, and it require certain steps to make. So it can take time. So, and sometimes we just want, to do it faster. But when Latvia was going through this integration process, so and adjusting and adapting and reforming also it's like a security and defense sector. At that time I worked at the Ministry of Defense, and then also I was witnessing, and I could also follow closely of what we had to do, all the homework we had to do. So I think it's a process, and we need to understand that it's a process, and it will take time. So, I would just want to wish that if a decision is taken, so if there is a goal set, that we are determined and that we are focused and that we go, we go straight forward, so that we are straightforward to do that. And indeed, now we are focused, on this immediate, need is to stop, to put the end to the war. So and then now there are other priorities. So, however, it's we very much appreciate what Ukraine, regardless of war, regardless the fact that there are many constraints, due to the war, that Ukrainian government is very much focused and knows, what needs to be done, are taking also certain necessary steps, to advance reforms.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Vінета, thank you for your speech. So I want to ask you, what sources of information does NATO documentation and informational center in Ukraine use to support its tasks and function?
What resources?
Yes, resources. Resources, yes.
Interesting. For us, very important is to listen to you. So, and that's why I very much value our today's conversation, because it's also I hear your questions, so understand what are your concerns or what is of your interest. So, and to hear your opinion. And in public diplomacy, it's very important to listen. Not sometimes it's important to speak and to express, but very important aspect is to listen and be a careful listener. So just you understand, so that you and this is this human factor is very much what we value. So that's why we engage with students, we engage, we listen. So and then we very much follow what you say. So yeah, because we are here to engage and work together.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so very much. Катерина Стрілець, Дмитро Гуцман і Максим Грищенко. Будь ласка, next, please.
I would like to express my gratitude for your speech, and my question is, what are the Center's plan for 2023, and are there areas that would benefit from maybe new approaches? Thank you for your answer.
Catherine, thanks. So to put it shortly, so I joined the NATO Information Center in the middle of the pandemic. So, and we also, I had to adjust. I arrived in Kyiv and I had to think, okay, so how to work now in the conditions when you can't meet people in person, or where there are just limited possibilities, so to meet. And this helped to think, to be creative. So. This year we have several projects, public diplomacy projects, information awareness or information projects supported by NATO Public Diplomacy Division, and we do it every year. So, and we have various engagements, and we will have, I think we will have a couple of video and digital projects. We are also engaging with the Ukrainian media. We are engaging with students. We support two information centers in Ukraine. So it's this networking is very important. So that is what we are doing. So and then we are also bringing to NATO. We are bringing, as already mentioned, Ukrainian journalists. So it is important. So that they are here, so or take part at NATO summit. So they hear, they know what's being discussed. So they can ask questions to Secretary General. So they can take part in a press conference. So. And then we are bringing Ukrainian groups also to NATO, that they are briefed, they are explained what is NATO's agenda. So. And what is our support, why we do this way or that way. So yeah, so it's very important for us to explain. So because of the trust, because trust increase when you are directly involved and engaged. Thanks.
Please, Dmitro.
Good evening, Vінета Кляйне. It was a good pleasure to listen to a lecture, and I'm sure that this information will be in handy. So my question is, what pieces of advice can you give in doing analytics, for example, in researching of world organizations like NATO? Thank you.
I would encourage you to visit NATO website. By the way, it's one thing. Please visit NATO website. www.nato.int. So, and there is also information not only in English but also in French, because Ukraine NATO has two official languages, English and Ukraine, but also in Ukrainian, English and French. So, and also, but there's also information in Ukrainian. Then I also encourage you to visit our website because NATO representation to Ukraine has Facebook page, not website, but Facebook page, Instagram account. And we have Twitter account. So NATO to Ukraine. So just please, NATO to Ukraine, please visit, because there we put, especially on our Facebook page, we put everything what we have, what we do, so that and you can follow all the like practical cooperation and also all the NATO decisions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maxim, please.
Me, yes. Okay, hello, thank you for your lecture. I want to ask you two small questions. They are, what we have to improve or change or maybe reform except of winning the war to become a member state of NATO in a short-term perspective? And what is the main problem of Ukraine nowadays?
Ukraine has a goal, Ukraine has an incentive. So Ukraine has a goal to prevail as independent and democratic country. So, and also that and to show to the world that authoritarian regimes can't prevail. So this is, and we really, so it's just many of my Ukrainian colleagues and good friends, they are on the front line. So, and what Ukrainian armed force are doing, it's a bravery, and it's an example, so which you are showing to the whole world. So this is I don't speak about, it's just your courage, your determination. So the way you fight and defend the country, it's something amazing. So and this is, and there are of course transparency and fighting corruption. So it's important. It's also being that ensuring parliamentary control and democratic control of security and defense sector. It's very important. So, and these are the things Ukraine is doing progress, and these are things we are focused, and we will be focused. So, and these things are part of this reform process, and these are things also that every NATO candidate country has to fulfill. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have one last question? Yeah, or I see.
Yes, it's the last question. Thank you. Yes, Arsenij Головченko, please, and maybe this last.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for your lecture, and I'm sure it was very useful for all of us. And I would like to ask you a question about Russian propaganda and disinformation. So how do NATO and Ukraine cooperate in coping with this problem, and how influential do you think Russian propaganda is now in NATO countries?
Thank you, Arsenij. One important thing what we did before the war was, and when we see, that Russia was getting prepared to invade Ukraine, was we declassified information. So, and that we did it also in advance. So, And I think this fact, also the classification of Russia's incentives and plans, that also prepared our audiences and our publics for what happened. So that has also made them more resistant or resilient towards Russia's propaganda. So, you know, the thing I can say is that also Russia puts lots of money and lots of means into its propaganda machinery, and it hasn't reached its goals, and especially in Europe. So when it comes to NATO member countries, so that's why no, it hasn't reached. So and but it's because for every normal person, it's understandable, you know, who is who. So, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you for this lecture. And Vінета, maybe next visit on offline. And
We can't
You
hear
are
you.
We can hear your microphone. Is turned off.
thank you very much. This meeting and maybe next meeting in offline, because many young people, it's very interesting connection about you. Thank you very much. And next we will have yesterday changing plan, and next meeting we will have in Monday. And we will have lecture with Madeline Moon. Okay.
I wish you success. So that was my
Yes. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Happy Easter.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a
Thank you
nice
for the
day.
lecture. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Goodbye.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye.